I'm happy to introduce to you our guest, Mr. Philip Metzger, IEC Secretary General and CEO. Mr. Metzger joined the IEC in February 2020. Prior to that, he served as a Director General of the Swiss Federal Office of Communications, Deputy to the Director of the Development Bureau at the International Telecommunications Union, and the Director at the European Free Trade Association. Trained as a lawyer, Mr. Metzger has issued several publications on the World Trade Organization and competition law. Hello, Philip, and welcome to the Voice of Standard Users podcast.
Good day, Chaim, and thanks very much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be with Ifan and its members and stakeholders to discuss about what we do and how we collaborate with you guys. So thank you very much for that.
Sure. It's a pleasure to have you with us. So let me start this podcasting by asking you, what originally drew you to the world of international standardization, and what keeps you passionate about it today?
Well, let me answer the first part of your question in two elements, really. The first is, I would almost say it was necessity that drew me to standardization, because I was a telecom regulator and we had some tricky challenges to solve, also opportunities. And we found a way thanks to standards. So, of course, I had been overseeing standards works in my team there, and I have been involved in standards organizations. But in the actual impact, I think I had to go down to the roots and see how they develop benefits for society and the economy. And I think that's the other element, which drew me to IEC as an organization in standardization, which was to create real impact. It brings together sort of international relations, which is a deep passion and the belief that I have, that is how we need to work together as a globe, as a world.
Right.
And with technology developments, and of course with trust. And so these are fantastic, it's a fantastic combination, which led me fully into the world of the standardization at the IEC.
Wonderful. So how do you see the fast technology developments, the energy transition, and the need for sustainability impact IEC work? And as well, how does it impact IEC technical program priorities?
Well, I would say that the future of standardization being defined by a rapid transition and technology development is something that's already strongly embedded in our strategic approach that we take overall. We see a sort of an ambition and of a positioning of our organization, our members and stakeholders in a shift from today's more I would say heterogeneous world into an all-electric and connected society. And I think for us, that is a key strategic priority that guides our daily work. It means delivering the standards and the conformity assessment services that allow leveraging smart grids, communication, digital technologies to achieve a decarbonized world. And so as technologies around the world evolve at a breakneck speed, we have to step up to ensure that these technologies are safe and efficient for all. And maybe if you allow me, Chaim, I could quickly speak to the important phenomenon of AI, but also in relation to the socio-technical responsibility, and maybe briefly on clean energy and climate action.
Please do. Yeah.
So the first topic, if I take AI and also the socio-technical responsibility, that is very much a topic around that. I think we must remember, and that's what we're trying to do at the IEC, is that for something which is as far-reaching or potentially far-reaching as AI and the impacts, benefits it has, but also challenges, technology is never just technical. It's not separate from society. We see that, also in policy discussions and in strong political engagements by all the stakeholders. And that's why we try to take a broader perspective, one that is really socio-technical. And we have, of course, a leading joint committee, technical committee with ISO on AI, where we have already developed standards that span the entire AI ecosystem, from technical capabilities to business, regulatory, ethical, and societal requirements. And we are in that addressing issues like safety, bias, data quality, so that we can help ensuring a responsible AI adoption in society. And if I just take one highlight in that context, we organized together with ISO and ITU under the World Standards Corporation banner the International AI Standards Summit in Seoul last December, which is an event that we organized very much as a testament to our commitment to bringing experts together, but also policymakers, regulators, and representatives from society to advance robust, responsible AI standards and frameworks. And I think that is a case in point here. And the second element, briefly, clean energy and climate action. Despite the overwhelming challenges of climate change, I think there has been cause for hope in recent years, certainly from our perspective. If you look at renewables, have been accounting for over 90% of global power expansion in 2024, and they continue to grow. And trusted, globally agreed standards help turn climate commitments into effective, measurable action across borders. And so there is no surprise, in a sense, that fostering a sustainable world is another core pillar of our strategic plan.
Right.
And we are conscious of shaping our work in accordance with that. And so IEC sets standards and provides conformity assessment for different renewable energy systems. You can take solar, marine, wind power, to then enabling smarter grids and integrating also advanced storage technologies, and operating safely, reliably, and efficiently on and off grid. And on the other hand, we have notably carbon footprint verification and circular economy services, which help build trust in companies' emission reduction and circular economy efforts. We have our ICEX certification, which is ensuring hydrogen system safety, has been actually doing for a long time, for more than 2 decades, which supports the green hydrogen economy and accelerates energy transition. So we are very committed to that. We have a global impact fund, as we call it, a vehicle where we are partnering with organizations who can help us turn the value of standards and conformity assessment into tangible benefits for communities who need the most. For example, we had a first project in Kenya, helping provide access to reliable and clean sources of electricity. And we are now this year supporting, through our Global Impact Fund, another new project that will bring clean cooking solutions to undeserved communities. So we are really fully engaged in that space.
Sounds very exciting. So how do you see the role of IC and international standards at the current geopolitical dynamics, where standards become level tools supporting national and regional industry competitiveness and supporting national security objectives?
Yeah, I think standards and conformity assessment are really incredible tools to boost the economy of a nation, but I think also the safe use of technologies, first by promoting technology transfer and innovation. We are, through our work, I think we are accelerating knowledge sharing by bringing together experts from across the world to contribute to that work that we do. And our standards are foundational for the transfer of knowledge and best practices, and through that help boost innovation. At the same time, that's sort of a long-standing hallmark of ours, recognized under the WTO agreements as well, is that, of course, they facilitate market access. So adherence to international standards opens doors to global markets. It ensures that the products and services meet the requirements of diverse regions, enabling seamless cross-border trade and collaboration. And also, I think the risk reduction is an important aspect on this for investors to know that a company or a country adheres to recognized international standards, reduces risk and uncertainty.
Absolutely.
This can encourage greater investment flows to scaling emerging technologies, and of course, enhancing the competitiveness is a very important aspect in this, because I think our international standards, they help providing a platform for all for competition to compete. Companies can then sort of leverage industry-wide accepted quality, reliability criteria, and it's not just the price that makes the competitiveness. And I think that can also make these investments more viable and profitable. So I think at the very end, I would also look at the supply chain flexibility and diversification. You mentioned the geopolitical environment, you mentioned security.
Right. Yeah.
I think our work really allows companies to multi-source across different geographies without having to redesign products. I think that's important for supply chain agility. And of course, it also reduces dependency on single suppliers. This is a huge debate, as we know, especially right now, I think in most of the countries. How can you create a more diverse base to source from? How can you reconfigure things rapidly if suddenly there are unforeseen economic or geopolitical disruptions? So again, I think what we do, I think is really of a very big, and if not a bigger significance than so far already it was.
Okay, great. So let's focus on Ifan. As we all know, Ifan represents standards users. How are standard users engaged in shaping the quality and relevance of IEC standards, and how can they have a stronger influence in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I really can't emphasize this more enough at the outset. Standards users play an absolutely foundational and crucial role in the actual standardization process, because they are one of our most important stakeholders. They know what the needs are. They provide very practical insights based on their real world experiences, and they help ensure that standards actually meet real needs. In IEC, many standards users are involved in the development of standards, which helps in building relevance for the standards themselves, and of course for an enhanced applicability. Users often also participate in testing and validation of standards, and IEC has a specific mechanism to bring clarity to standards when that is needed through the so-called interpretation sheet. It provides a quick formal explanation to an urgent request by a user of a standard, testing laboratory, certification body, manufacturer, and many more. And the request may come directly or via an IEC conformity assessment scheme. So I think from a user perspective, this is a great tool to use. I think if you look at this also from an SME perspective in particular, they can have a strong influence through their national processes, the committees, and by participating in consultation and pilot phases. And of course, that's also where Ifan can play a very, very crucial role to create awareness of the standards and the conformity assessment services, and also how policymakers can use that to create social impact. And through knowledge and interaction with us, exchanges, I think that leads to greater mobilization. I would say the more users engage early, the more effective and practical the standards become. I think that's really.
So they have to be very proactive in the process. That's what you say.
Exactly.
So the World Development Report published last year by the World Bank positions standards as critical, and I quote, hidden infrastructure for economic growth, trade, and sustainability. As we know, the gap is increasing between developed and emerging economies, especially with regard to the use of digital technologies. What is IEC doing to support emerging economies and reduce this gap? And may I add another question? How does IEC ensure that digitalization initiatives do not further increase this gap?
Yeah, very, very pertinent and challenging questions, Chaim, you asked me there. I mean, to start with, I think you have to look at potential and actual reality and impact. So digitalization per se obviously often offers solutions for financial, educational, health, several other socioeconomic opportunities. So our goal certainly is to ensure that digitalization and new technologies reduce global inequalities. That's part of our DNA. We're an inclusive bottom-up organization. And we have as another strategic pillar collaboration, inclusion, and trust. And so clearly we want to see and measure how our work reduces global inequalities. And we do know at the same time, and that's the question of the impact or the reality,
right,
that when it comes to the implementation of these opportunities, there are wide gaps that do exist, and that we have to do more to bridge that gulf. And so when the World Bank's World Development Report calls standards the hidden infrastructure of prosperity, I would say that's absolutely true. Countries that do invest in standards and conformity assessment have, I think, a boost, or at least a potential boost in moving forward, because they create compatibility, safety, and trust. They make markets more efficient. They make trade more predictable. And through that, they can shape almost everything we exchange across the border. So today, nearly 90% of world trade is actually influenced by standards-linked measures, 90%. And
90%.
You look at digital payments, you look to electric vehicle charging, medical devices, renewable energy. None of this works without standards. And so if you ask me about what we do and how the pathway looks like, of course, from an institutional and sort of process point of view, adopting the international standards to match local realities is a first step. But then you need the institutional setup for that. And as institutions mature, countries can align more closely with global norms, and they can reduce barriers and boost competitiveness. And besides adopting standards, it's also very important for standards users to participate in shaping the very standards that shape the world around us and impact us. So I can tell you from almost daily experience, I'm traveling extensively to meet with our members and the stakeholders. I've just have been again on another mission in Africa, in Ethiopia. There is a very encouraging drive and dynamism and engagement. And this is hard work for all these organizations and their stakeholders to engage more with the IEC, but there's an enormous will and quite also often impressive mobilization of resources to go further in that. And we are here to support them better. We want to be close to the stakeholders' needs. We have regional centers. We've just increased also our staffing in the Africa office based in Nairobi, for instance, but of course we're equally present in the other continents. And so, in how we approach this, we, once again, as a bottom-up organization, want to be as close as possible to the needs. And that requires constant interaction and understanding of what countries need. I would say in terms of digitalization in particular, I've seen that also in my previous function as a telecom regulator, that there are very encouraging tales of leapfrogging, where countries that were not as far advanced as others bypassed them in certain sectors, in certain services or products, and found much better solutions. And suddenly they were leading the pack in a certain economic sector. And so that's, of course, something where I'm very alert to, but it does not replace, of course, a structured and fundamentally principled work and resource mobilization to do more for those countries which are not as fast advanced as others in the standards world.
Right. Exciting. The IC has been advancing smart and digital standards. How do you see this changing in the way companies access the use of standards?
Well, I'm almost tempted to say, as we just discussed before, the users are always the most important factor at the outset, because they determine what needs they have. I mean, we don't invent smart standards in the IC in a lab. We are getting to smart standards together with ISO in this case, because we have users who tell us we need this and this and this for our digital production chain, etc. What I would like to emphasize, this, when we speak about digital future of standards, this is not just about so-called smart standards. Because what we are doing and want to keep doing is making standards and conformity assessment more accessible for an increasingly digital infrastructure altogether. Companies, of course, need to work with data files more now, but we have many use cases or needs in different countries and different sectors, which cannot all be met just by some so-called smart standards. I mean, we have quite a diverse range already today of digital products and services, or also production methods, with an online standards development platform, etc. And I find, especially the past few months, I've really detected an enormous variety of needs that I think, have to be very sensitive to. We can't just tell everybody you have to do a smart standards, that's your future only. Of course, smart standards will be more and more important, but we see big needs, differentiated needs. We see also a lot of interest in leveraging AI, for instance, and we have to look, of course, at that very precisely, how we can leverage that without losing something or jeopardizing our trust, the trust into our content. And so I think a digitally enabled ecosystem unlocks potentially new opportunities for global collaboration, but you have to be true to the needs of the users and the different products and services we are developing, and some of them, of course, together with ISO and smart space in particular. They are really designed to make the uptake easier, because digital tools and products can help access to them as well, because it's not a given that everybody can digest and then has to somehow develop its own digital tools to, for instance, digest a big several hundred page long standard. So we also want to be tailor-made in the platforms, the services we can offer to our membership and their stakeholders. So I would really emphasize, we want to take a broad digital approach, because that is what is opening up a world of possibility for IEC members and their stakeholders to offer new services, and it has to be tailor-made. There's no one size fits all as such.
Right. Yes.
And that's why we really also keep inviting national committees, their stakeholders, users to engage in pilot context, for instance, because there you see more concretely what the need really is, what the challenges are as well. And that gradually will help us shape an even more advanced framework to address your needs more efficiently.
Right. So this leads me to the next question. Looking ahead, where do you see the greatest standardization challenges? AI, cybersecurity, energy transition, or other? And how can users contribute?
Well, AI obviously is a potential game changer, which has opportunities but also challenges to cater for. It can provide for so many opportunities for a more efficient infrastructure. But I think it also introduces new requirements for transparency, data governance, the human oversight. So as I said before, we need standards that address also all that, not just the technical features themselves. And I think ultimately the users play a critical role here, because they can contribute by engaging early, before the rules are actually set. And this consultation, participation in technical committees, industry collaboration as well, and the involvement of regulators and policymakers is absolutely crucial here. I think ultimately we have to look for that as an overarching framework or a framework condition.
Right.
But if I look at core expertise area where I see as a leading global entity, a global organization, I think grid resilience stands out in this context, because the demand grows from renewables integration, electric mobility, etc. We have a much more complex grid, dynamic, smarter distributed system, and so resilience of that will very much depend on international standards. If you look at interoperability, data exchange, storage, etc.
Right. Yeah.
The second substance area I would like to mention is cybersecurity. It is really absolutely foundational and has to be treated as such. Every new connected device, every digital interface, and every operational technology endpoint expands the risk surface of a critical infrastructure. So standards can ensure secure, trusted supply chains, and also consistent cybersecurity baselines across all areas. And the third technical area,
energy transition, yeah.
Exactly, is absolutely fundamental in this context as well. So I think that's sort of in a nutshell, if you look at emerging challenges and where core areas will be even more important in the future, where we do work today, and then all this in a context of fast evolving AI, I think there is quite something to do here over the coming years.
It's a big challenge, huh?
It is.
Yeah. Philip, we are nearing the end of this exciting podcast. So I would like to ask you if you can make one bold prediction about the future of international standardization over the next decade. What would it be? And second question, what role would standard users play in shaping this future scenario? So this is like a strategic question.
It's maybe even a philosophical question, but I think we always try to be close to reality at the IEC and not so much in theory or philosophy. But if I could make one bold, I would say it's a prediction that's maybe a little bit far-fetched, but certainly an aspiration. Mm-hmm. But also and results is founded in some analysis we have already been doing, we keep doing, is that fundamentally, if I look at our organization, our members and what they do and what they use, what we do as an organization with more than 30,000 experts across the world, I think inclusiveness, trust, consensus, and I would say authoritative products and services. I mean, it sounds maybe very rigid and very authoritarian, but what I mean with authoritative products and service is something that has been elaborated in a trusted space where everybody can contribute and where ultimately there's a common will of producing a standard or offering a conformity assessment service which can be relied upon. Because we see today that there are many so-called services or digital phenomena or so-called opportunities which are not really trustworthy. And people detect that, sometimes through great pain and loss. But of course, we want to take a more proactive approach to that. And so I think if IC remains based on its core DNA, I said that, inclusiveness, trust, consensus building, producing authoritative content, and I think that's an important and combines that with innovation, maybe even more than in the past. Because we can't just stand still. We can't just say, well, we were trusted since 1906, and that's why people come here, and that will continue. Yeah, we have all that track record, and it stands us in good stead. But if we don't innovate and transpose or bring these core hallmarks with us into the current and future landscape and developments, technology developments, then I think we will become less relevant. But I have good hope, more than hope, because we're working hard on that. We're spending a lot of money on it and time and efforts, and we are mobilizing many bright minds around the globe. Combining that with innovation is really something which will the IEC, I would claim, even more relevant and important. So that's maybe bold. I'm not sure it's an absolute prediction, but it's certainly an aspiration. And I think that is something I like to use sort of as an end point in our conversation for now. And then, of course, it has to be revisited and checked and tested as we go along.
Right. Well, thank you, Philip, for sharing your vision and strategic insights. It was really an eye-opening discussion. So I'd like to wish you great success in advancing your vision and mission at IEC. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Ifan Voice of Standard Users. I hope this conversation with Philip has been valuable because standards truly make the world go around. See you in our next episode.